Sairam children, hope all is well. Mrs. Shaila here from Sai Angel School. Today's session is going to be from your geography book, chapter 2, that is latitudes and longitudes. You have already learned about globe, a little bit about latitudes and longitudes in your previous class, that is in class 5. So, a little more detail. In detail, we will learn about the globe and latitudes and longitudes. In the previous chapter also, you learned about the earth in the solar system. What did you learn? You have learned that our planet Earth is not sphere. It is slightly flattened at the north and the south poles and bulge in the middle. Hope you remember all that. Many years ago, thousands of years ago, when there were no space shuttles or rockets sending down messages of the earth from space, people had no way of knowing that what our planet looked like. So the large size of the earth makes it so difficult for us to study it. So as a whole, to get a better idea about the earth, to be able to visualize it and to know where exactly the continents and the oceans lay on its spherical surface, the geographers, who are they? They are the ones who make the study of the earth. Geography, what's the meaning of geography? Geography means study of the earth. So the geographers who make the study of the earth have developed different means of representing the earth on a smaller scale to make the study easy. Now, two things they have found out. One, we have the globe. The two important tools that they made was globe and the map. In today's session, we are going to learn about the globe. So, what is a globe? What it is? A globe is a three-dimensional model of the earth in miniature. What is miniature? Greatly reduced in size, very, very small. So, it is the three-dimensional model of the earth in miniature, very, very small. It is a true representation of the earth, more or less exactly how it looks. A globe is more accurate than a flat map. Why? Because it follows the curvature, we say, meaning to say the shape, the circle, wherever there is a circle, that area, the curvature of the earth. It also gives us the correct shape and size of the continents and the countries and shows distances and directions without a distortion. What is the meaning of distortion? Without any out of shape or twist or shapeless, we do say. So, correct shape without any distortion. So, globes are of different sizes and types. There are large, small and inflatable pocket globes like balloons. You can blow it and then put away the air and put it in your pocket. Pocket globes. Some globes can be placed on the table. You can see on the picture. And some can be suspended from the ceiling. While it is difficult to carry huge globes from place to place, it's very difficult. You can't carry in a bag like that. It looks huge. So it is easy to carry pocket globes, or inflatable globes which can be made flat, that kind of globes. So now, apart from being used to locate places, there are some more good points for the globe. So to locate place, it can be used. Globes are also used to plan long distance sea and air routes called great circle routes. So for this also, the globes are useful. They are also used to determine the routes of satellites. Okay, so these are the plus points of the globes. Globe, it is difficult to carry from place to place, yes, but there are also lot of plus points, meaning to say useful points. That is, globes are often used to plan long distance sea and air routes. They also used to determine the routes of satellites, and globes will show the correct shape and size of continents and countries. It shows the distances and directions without any distortion, without any out of shape, okay, with correct shape. So these are the things we learn about the globe. Now, the next point is, how are we going to locate place on the globe? How are we going to do? So you can see here in the diagram shown, a needle is fixed through the globe in a tilted manner. Can you notice that? A black needle. So, which is called its axis. You learned about this axis earlier also. Once again, I am just revising you. So, this axis you can see in the, enlarge this picture and see this in the diagram. 2 points on the globe through which the needle passes are 2 poles. Can you see that? You have near the axis the 2 points up and down, that is north and south. You have the north pole and the south pole. The globe can be moved around this needle. You just touch it, it will just move around. And so the real earth has not such needle, okay? It's only an imaginary needle that we, for our study's sake, we have put it. It moves around or spins around the axis, which is an imaginary line only. There is no line there in the middle of the earth. It's only an imaginary line. Now what we are going to talk about, the equator or the latitudes or the longitudes, everything, all these lines are for us, for our study's sake, to make things easy. The geographers have done it. Otherwise they are all imaginary lines. They are not real lines. So the axis of the earth is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degree. 23.5 degree to vertical. Vertical means from up to down. That means from north pole to south pole. So the south pole and the north pole act as reference points to locate places on the globe. These both poles help us to locate places in the globe. Now that is not enough. Still there are things that are needed for us to locate places on the globe. Another imaginary line running on the globe divides it into 2 equal parts. Can you see this diagram? 2 equal parts. North you have the northern hemisphere, south you have the southern hemisphere, and the equator, which are of 0 degree latitude, is in the middle. It divides the earth into 2 equal parts. The northern half of the earth is known as the northern hemisphere and the southern half is known as the southern hemisphere. You can see clearly both the hemispheres. They are both equal halves. Not one small and one big. No, they are both same, equal. Therefore, the equator is an imaginary circular line and is very important reference point to locate places on the earth. So we can locate the places like according to the degree that will be shown. We can locate saying how far south is away from the equator, how far it is, that particular place. or how far north that particular place is away from the equator, or closer to the equator, or closer to the poles, etc. So that is how we locate places. You can see in the diagram where our India is. You can see it in the picture. Name also is given. So you see how far you can just locate it looking at the where the equator is. Next we will come to the latitudes and parallel lines, which you have already learned in the 5th standard. This is only a little bit of revision, and for you a little more in a little more detail it is given to you. Then you have all parallel circles from the equator. Can you see that from the equator? Equator is also in the middle of the earth like a ring. It's a ring. Then above that and below that there are parallel circles, rings. Parallel means the lines, all the lines, none of these lines meet each other. They are full circle. They just go around the earth just like the equator, but away from the equator. Now these circles from the equator up to the poles, there are many circles. So these are called parallels or latitudes of different degrees. Latitudes are measured in degrees again, just like equator we have given 0 degree. You have, as you go to the North Pole, you have 20 degree north, 40 degree north, or 60 degree north, or 80 degree north, and finally we have the North Pole as 90 degree north. So then the same way you have in the southern hemisphere, the same degrees, same. So all these latitudes are of equal distance. I hope that much is clear. And you have the equator represents the 0 degree latitude. Okay, can see here in the diagram, equator represents the 0 degree latitude. So since the distance from the equator to either of the poles is 1/4 of a circle round the earth, it will measure 1/4 of 360 degrees. That is 90 degrees. So the poles are of 90 degree. Whether the North Pole or the South Pole, they both are of 90 degree. So how do we mention that? 90 degree north and 90 degree south. The North Pole and South Pole respectively. And so all parallels North Pole of the equator are called north latitudes. Similarly, all parallels to the South Pole of the equator are called south latitudes. So the value of each latitude is therefore followed by either the word north. For north we mention as N, capital N, and put a 0 on top and say north, what degree, particular degree, you write the number and put a small 0 on top and then write north, or if it is in the southern hemisphere, you write a capital S. So you can notice this in the diagram. You can see that how they have mentioned equator. They have mentioned you have the 0 degree, it's in the middle, neither north nor south. Then you have in the northern hemisphere, the first latitude, you have the 15 degree north, and below the equator you have 15 degree south. Can you see that? Then Tropic of Cancer, it's another latitude, 23.5 degree north. Tropic of Capricorn, 23.5 degree south. As you have so many latitudes. You can also notice one more thing, that is, as we move away from the equator, the size of the parallels of latitudes decreases. Those rings, the longest latitude therefore is the equator, and then as you go to the North Pole, the size of the equator, the length of the equator, it reduces. It becomes smaller, 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 and at the poles it becomes a dot. Same way as you go to the South Pole, from the equator, as you move to the South Pole, the size of the latitudes become smaller. The circle becomes smaller. Now you have important parallels of latitudes. So you have very important parallels of latitude. The most important one we have, first one, that is the equator is of 0 degree latitude. Equator is also known as the latitude, longest latitude. Then you have the North Pole and the South Pole besides equator, which is of 90 degree north and 90 degree south. So there are four more other than that, four more other parallels of latitude. What are they? Now we have the first one, we take it as Tropic of Cancer, 23.5 degree north in the northern hemisphere. Tropic of Capricorn, 23.5 degree in the southern hemisphere. Arctic Circle at 66.5 degree north of the equator, and Antarctic Circle 66.5 degree south of equator. So these parallels will help us when we learn about the temperate zones. So these parallels will help us how to locate the temperate zones, etc. You can see here the latitudes: equator, Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, then you have Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. I hope this much is understood for you. Children, it's nothing, very simple. You have the equator in the middle, which is a longest latitude in 0 degree, and then comes, first we will take the north. We have Tropic of Cancer is another important latitude. In south we have Tropic of Capricorn, another important latitude, and the degree is mentioned here, 23.5 north and 23.5 south. Then we have in the northern hemisphere Arctic Circle of 66.5 degree north, and Antarctic Circle 66.5 degree south in the southern hemisphere. These are the important latitudes. Then you have the heat zone, heat zones or temperate zones. You can see that in the diagram. Just pay attention to the diagram. You have the sun's rays coming and the earth is tilted. Okay. So due to the tilted nature of the earth's axis, you can see the earth spinning on the axis. There is an unequal distribution of heat or solar energy on the surface of the earth. Unequal distribution means what? See, which is closer to the sun, the place which is closer to the sun, you can see that is equator and the tropical areas. There the sun's rays are direct and it will be very, very hot, those places. Whereas the other areas towards the poles, the sun's rays are slanting, they are not direct. So there the heat will be less. So the distribution of the heat, the amount of heat a place gets depends on the angle, at which angle the sun's rays is falling on that particular place or the point. So based on the amount of solar energy received, each hemisphere in the north or in the south, each hemisphere is divided into the latitude area, that hemisphere is divided into 3 temperature or heat zones. Temperature zones or heat zones. So what are they? You can see that you have the torrid zone. In yellow it is given equator, where the sun's rays falls direct. It's the torrid zone. Heat is more there. So as the earth revolves around the sun, due to the tilted nature, that is very important, of the earth's axis, sun appears to move between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. In the latitudes between the two tropics, the midday sun shines perpendicularly overhead, meaning to say straight, at least once a year. As these latitudes get the direct rays of the sun, this is the hottest zone. So this zone is known as the torrid zone, very, very hot zone. Then you have the second one you have as the temperate zone. What is temperate zone? Temperate zone is not as hot as the torrid zone, where the midday sun never shines overhead on any latitudes beyond the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. So torrid zone is between this, within there. After that, the angle of the sun's rays goes on decreasing towards the poles. As it moves towards the poles, it is slanting. You can just follow the picture that was shown before. It decreases. So what happens? As these areas bounded by the Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle, so between the Tropic of Cancer and Arctic Circle in the northern hemisphere and the Tropic of Capricorn, between the areas of Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle in the southern hemisphere, have moderate temperature. Okay, you can see in the picture, these are moderate temperatures. So these are therefore called as the temperate zones. These are called the temperate zones. Then you have the third one, that is the frigid zone. What is a frigid zone? Again, the angle of the sun's rays keeps decreasing, I told you, as we move towards the poles. So the latitudes between the Arctic Circle and the North Pole in the northern hemisphere and between the Antarctic Circle and the South Pole in the southern hemisphere get very, very little solar energy. So these regions are very cold and are therefore known as the frigid zone or polar regions. Okay, I hope that much is clear to you. Okay, so you can also follow a small exercise in your house to find out this. In your book, it is given at the side of the book on page 12, it is given to you. Take a torch and just light that torch against a piece of paper, and keep the paper directly standing. And so the light is not spread so much, but the light where it is falling, that spot is very, very bright. Now keep the paper slanting where the light is spread through a larger area, and then also it decreases, brightness decreases, isn't it? So that example you can just practice at home. Is that clear, children? Okay, now, so we learned about what are the things we learned? Globe. Now its latitudes. Okay, about the longitudes we will learn in the next session. So the characteristics of different the important parallels we call, what are parallels? They are the latitudes, and the hot or the different zones. The heat is distributed 3 zones, that is the torrid zone, which is very hot region, and the temperate zone, which is mild medium heat, and the frigid zone where the heat doesn't reach and it is very cold region. So we learned about these 3 zones, and so today we have a small homework, very, very simple homework. What you have to do? You have to draw a diagram of the globe, very easy, showing the Earth's axis. I have shown you, you can follow the diagram what is given to you here itself, or you have it in your book, showing the Earth's axis, the equator, you have to mark the equator, then the tropics of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. Is that clear? That much you have to mark. You have it in your book itself, you can mark that also, but do it in a sheet of, this is an assignment or it is a homework, both are same. Do it in your a sheet of paper and then file it for the submission, which will be told to you later, but you preserve that. So this is your homework. So children, I am winding up today's session here. We'll meet in the next session for the remaining part of the chapter. Till then, keep safe. God bless you.